This is You've Already Been Hacked, recorded on
19 October 2025. Welcome back to You've Already Been Hacked. This week I'm flying solo. Cyber Cowboy is off somewhere in the digital west. Let's get right into it. Our top story: nation-state threats have cracked F5's big IP source code. F5's Networks, the vendor behind the world's most widely used application delivery controller ADSSL platform, disclosed that a sophisticated nation-state actor gained unauthorized access to its internal systems and exfiltrated a portion of source code from the big IP family. The breach, uncovered during a routine audit, forced F5 to suspend new releases and issue emergency patches for all customers. The stolen code could allow attackers to embed backdoors, create zero-day exploits, and poison future product updates. This is a big deal. It matters because F5's big IP is deployed in millions of data centers, cloud and edge environments, and just about anywhere. A compromise of its codebase threatens the security posture of thousands of enterprises, government agencies, and critical infrastructure providers. It also highlights the growing trend of nation-state actors targeting security vendors as a supply chain attack vector. So, what could or should you be doing right now? Well, verify if you have F5 inventory and ensure you are running a version that is not affected by the known code exfiltration. You need to apply your patches immediately. This is not a wait. Remember, if you're hearing it on this podcast, you are already behind the power curve. Ensure you are running a version that is not affected by known code exfiltration. And test in a staging environment first. Implement zero trust controls, restrict administrative access, and enable multi-factor authentication, and monitor for anomalous activity if you weren't already doing so. Audit your supply chain and reevaluate in all third-party components and consider a diverse vendor mix for critical functions. This is one hole in one ship sinks everything, right? You don't want to do that. We've learned this lesson a few times for a few different reasons over the past decade. Maintain incident response readiness and update your playbooks to include code-based compromise scenarios and conduct tabletop exercises, something the Cowboy and I have harped on over and over and over and over again. Yeah, this one's kind of scary because it's one of those, it affects everything simultaneously because it's part of that big IP platform. It's part of something that everything talks to, right? So if it's already, if all of your systems are quote unquote secure, they're already poisoned because they have to talk to a greater system for relay and understanding of networks and all that sort of stuff. It's not good. It's very bad. Get your updates in as soon as possible, if not already underway. Like, there should be no delay. And if your bosses are saying, well, we have to delay for X, then they're just wanting themselves to be compromised. This is one of those times where the CIO has to lose to the CISO. Absolutely has to. Or the CTO has to lose to the CISO. Basically, no one should tell the CISO they're wrong to get this fixed. Let's see, what else do we have this week? Airport hijack. Pro-Hamas messages blare across Canadian and U.S. terminals. So hackers infiltrated Kiwana International Airport in British Columbia, Canada's terminal, displaying and on loudspeakers broadcasting pro-Hamas propaganda and anti-Trump slurs that delayed flights. A parallel attack was reported at Harrisburg International Airport in Pennsylvania. The perpetrators exploited poorly patched IoT devices to hijack public announcement systems. This matters because public-facing infrastructure, even if non-critical, can be weaponized to spread misinformation and disrupt operations, and it underscores the need to treat all networked devices, especially those with public-facing interfaces, as potential adversary targets. So what can we be doing about this? Well, we want to segment our IoT and our AV networks. Keep public announcement devices on an isolated VLAN with strict access controls. regularly update the firmware of said devices to ensure all displays and speaker systems run the latest vendor firmware. Implement intrusion detection using anomaly-based monitoring to flag unexpected or audio and video broadcasts. Educate staff to train personnel to recognize and report suspicious activity or messaging, and coordinate with authorities to share findings with aviation security agencies to strengthen collective defenses. So this is interesting because I don't know how many people have seen it. I know a few in our audience probably have, but you go into a terminal. Some of them will be blue screened. Some of them will be black screened. Some of them will show you the prompt of the system they're on. And sometimes that's a Raspberry Pi, which is kind of frightening in of itself. I understand why they would use that. Low power, low commodity cost, easy to spin up, but potentially something that could be highly exploitable, right? So definitely get this stuff all patched up and fixed as fast as possible, folks, because no one wants, regardless of the messaging, in this case, pro-Trump, pro-Hamas, anti-Trump, it doesn't matter, right? You don't want false or misleading or misattributable or any sort of information that is not supposed to be there being displayed or telegraphed in any sort of way. That's just terrible. What else do we have this week? So IBM's TechXchange 2025 AI Revolution and Security Takeaways. At its annual TechXchange event, IBM highlighted the rapid expansion of AI and stressed the importance of secure AI pipelines. The conference presented best practices for data protection, model governance, and bias mitigation, framing AI as both a strategic opportunity and a new attack surface. This matters as AI models become integral into your business operations. Attackers target data by poisoning, model theft, and adversarial inputs. Secure AI practices are now as critical as traditional security controls. You've heard me and the Cowboy harp on that multiple times on this podcast. So what could you be doing about this? Well, you want to adopt a secure AI framework, use libraries that enforce data integrity and model integrity checks, implement model monitoring, so continuously track inputs of what's going into your models and distributions and predict anomalies, protect sensitive data both at rest and in transit, enforce least privileged policies for model deployment and usage, and stay informed and follow industry white papers on AI security to keep up with emerging threats. So AI is the thing du jour right now. It is moving at a breakneck speed. It is hard to keep up with. If it's in your environment, or if you're using it frequently within your environment, what you really want to do is you want to try and understand the components that are in your stack more than all the noise that's happening. What's in your stack, and follow everything you can about what's in your stack, so that you know how to defend for what is implemented where you are. That may be difficult still, but at least you'll be, that's the filter that I would apply. Let's see. Firmware flaws. Motherboard manufacturers show little security care. An in-depth XDA developers investigation revealed 3 critical firmware weaknesses in popular motherboard models: absence of firmware signing, default weak passwords, and unpatched UEFI bugs. These flaws allow attackers to execute arbitrary code before the OS boots, effectively bypassing all downstream security controls. This matters because the firmware of your motherboard is the first layer of trust. Compromising it at this level can compromise an entire system, enabling persistent threats that are difficult to detect. The hardware supply chain is increasingly targeted by non-nation state and nation state actors and cyber criminals. Lots of bad here, right? So even if everything else is secure in your system, you still have a problem. You still have a problem because now your firmware on your motherboard is not stable or secure, and it doesn't really matter if everything else is patched up, because that's an underlying layer of trust for everything else. What can you do? Well, you want to validate your firmware authenticity and check that your motherboard's BIOS or UEFI is signed by the manufacturer. Update those things regularly. Apply firmware updates from official vendor channels. Go out to their websites, not third-party websites. Go out to the vendor's website and download the most recent firmware and do those updates. In a production environment, that is exceedingly difficult to do because of timing and scheduling, but yes, it is something that has to be done. If possible, enable secure boot on your systems and force the boot process to reject unsigned code. Change default credentials immediately by setting strong and unique passwords for your BIOS and UEFI. Audit vendor security practices. Again, your third parties prefer manufacturers with robust firmware security programs and transparency reports. And if they don't have that, depending on your environment, you may want to ask why. And then finally, for this week, Meta partners with ARM for energy-efficient AI GPUs. So Meta Platforms has announced a partnership with ARM Holdings to integrate Neoverse GPU processors into its AI workloads, aiming to slash power consumption while scaling services across its properties. The move reflects the industry's shift towards energy-efficient, scalable AI hardware. This matters because hardware choices directly impact the AI performance that's out there, the cost, and the security. And energy-efficient GPUs can reduce operational costs, but they can also introduce new firmware and supply chain risks that must be managed carefully. So anyone that is doing any level of AI work other than just bare using the inference right at the front end knows that more GPU compute means better AI, means more. It also depends on memory throughput and all that stuff. So bigger, beefier GPUs tend to perform better, right? Well, bigger and beefier GPUs also right now eat up an immense amount of power. Anyone that has a commercial grade, a commodity grade, consumer grade NVIDIA card will know that your 5060 takes a whole lot less juice to run at its peak power level than a 5090. But the amount that you're going to get out of a 5090 versus a 5060 is going to be considerably different, but you're also paying for it one way or another, probably, and ultimately in multiple ways, right? Not just the original cost, but how much it costs to power the thing to do the stuff you want it to do. So what can you do about, doing in this situation right now? Well, first, you want to assess firmware security and verify that your new GPU firmware is signed and regularly updated. You want to monitor your supply chain for your GPUs and track the provenance of hardware components to mitigate tampering. You want to balance that performance and security, so consider a secure by design feature set when selecting your processors for critical workloads. Implement robust vendor management by maintaining a formal relationship with ARM and including SLAs for security patches if possible in those cases, right? ARM being a rather large company. If you can get a relationship there, all the more power to you. And plan for energy efficiency by incorporating power management metrics into your security monitoring dashboards. Again, if you're going to buy it, you should know what it's costing you. It's not just that upfront cost. There is that tail. And one of those tails of cost, especially in AI, is power. This is why major AI providers and creators right now are buying or building power plants specifically to power their data centers that revolve around AI. So that's all that I have for you this week. I'm the professor of CyberRisk, and we'll talk again soon.
If you like this podcast, share it with your colleagues and friends. Your support is how we are able to continue to make this content. Thank you.